Recognize the senator from Oklahoma.
Mr. President, I ask unanimous consent to waive the mandatory quorum call with respect to the McDonald nomination.
Without objection.
Mr. President, we're talking again about the SAVE Act. This simple piece of legislation focuses on two key ideas. That if you're an American citizen, which is required by law, you just show it. I call that the trust and verify portion of the bill. The 1965 Voting Rights Act begins with the statement, all citizens. It is already required under federal law that you have to be a citizen of the United States to vote. We've all agreed on that. There's no one disputing that. Republican, Democrat, Independent, we all agree American citizens are the ones that should decide the future of America. What we disagree on is, should we check? Or should we just trust that it actually is true? I've shared in this body before that in Oklahoma, we passed a statute several years ago saying that if you go to jury duty and you tell a judge, I'm not eligible to be able to serve on a jury because I'm not a citizen in the United States. In Oklahoma, we then check to see if you're registered to vote. And we found quite a few folks that tell a judge, I'm not a citizen, but told the election board, I want to vote anyway. Well, that's not legal, but in Oklahoma, we purge the voter roll when that happens to be able to make sure those individuals that have already given sworn testimony they're not a citizen are not also registered to vote. That's not true everywhere across the country. Lots of folks just say, we just trust, but we never verify. We actually don't clean up the voter roll at all. There are some states that's really fascinating to me, like Arizona. Arizona has a state law in place right now that says every person that registers to vote must also prove their citizenship. This already exists right now. New Hampshire has a law that says every person that registers to vote has to show they're a citizen. This is not crazy policy. This is already happening in some of our states right now, that they have to be able to show they're a citizen. In Arizona, though, it's a very interesting thing. In Arizona, you can register to vote for a state election or a county election, and you've got to be a citizen. But if you want to vote for a federal election, you don't have to show that you're a citizen. You want to talk backwards. This was a case that broke out there in a court case for them, where they established, oh no, you've got to show that you're an American citizen to vote for the governor of Arizona, but you don't have to show that you're an American citizen to vote for the president of the United States. If we can figure out how to be able to do registration, to be able to protect the rights of individuals in Arizona, to be able to vote for their governor if they're an American citizen, surely we can do this all over the country. The Save America Act is simple. It just says it's already the law that you have to be an American citizen to vote. Let's just verify it. The state of New Hampshire is not trying to limit the number of people voting. They're just following federal law. Then the second part of it, pretty simple. You have to show ID to vote. Now, 36 states already have this requirement. Let me just run through what this means. There are already 36 states that say you have to show an ID. Now, some of them are very narrow, that they say you've got to have a specific type of photo ID on that. That's Arkansas, that's Georgia, Indiana, Kansas, Mississippi, Montana, Nebraska, Ohio, Tennessee, Wisconsin. They all have in their state law, you've got to have a certain type of photo ID to actually qualify you to be able to show up and to be able to vote. Multiple other states have some other limitation where it's a photo ID may be preferred, but they can also bring other IDs. That's Arizona, North Dakota, Utah, Wyoming, Alabama, Florida, Idaho, Iowa, Kentucky, Louisiana, Michigan, Missouri, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Rhode Island, South Carolina, South Dakota, Texas, Washington State, West Virginia, Alaska, Colorado, Connecticut, Delaware, Hawaii, Oklahoma, Virginia, and Pennsylvania. This doesn't seem very controversial to me. If you're keeping count on fingers and toes, you ran out a while ago. It's 36 states. 36 states already have some kind of requirement for ID to be able to vote. This has got to be the most non-controversial proposal sitting out there to say, how can we disagree when 36 states already do this? But for some reason in this body, it's controversial for us as a nation to do what 36 states already do. So we bring this to the body yet again, as we have now for days and days and days. The American people are just not offended with pulling out an ID at an airport to be able to get on a plane. They're just not offended by showing ID when they walk into a federal building. They're just not offended by pulling out an ID in some places when they're going to write a check, for those that still know how to write a check in America. It's just not that offensive to be able to pull out some sort of identification. And state after state after state have shown this doesn't limit the number of people that can show up to vote. It just limits the amount of fraud that can happen in that state when people vote. You just can't walk up to a polling place and say, my name is, and pick a name. You've got to show something with your name on it to vote. It's pretty straightforward. 36 states already agree, and they've already put this in practice. So all we're trying to say is, can we continue this as federal law? I think we can. Not just saying it's federal law, but actually verifying that it's actually applied. I'm a big fan of the phrase trust and verify. That's all that this does. I would hope at some point we'd have a breakthrough here. But in the meantime, I'm going to continue to be able to come back and to say, why can't we all agree on what most Americans nod their head and say, that's a pretty good idea, and just get it done? Mr. President, I yield the floor, and I would note the absence of quorum.
Clerk will call the roll.
Ms. Alston Brooks.